practice to stripping tipping. Today's episode brings you history, horsepower, and a whole lot of insight. Our guest is a returning favorite. Not only has he co-hosted with us before, I mean, he's the one who actually hosted Mario Andretti's episode. That's a separate story. But he's also a walking motorsport encyclopedia, in my opinion. He's been behind the scenes on the ground of Formula One and is actively involved with Mercedes Formula One team. He's a great writer, a creative mind, from digging into racing's deep past to witnessing the sport's electric present. He's the perfect bridge between history and high-octane action. So grab your headphones, your favorite snack, and notepad, because we're diving into the rich, roaring world of motorsport history with the one and only Colin Johnston. How are you?
There she is. Hi, Georgie. I'm great. Who is this guy you're talking about? He sounds fantastic. I'd love to meet him. He sounds like my kind of guy.
I mean, he's a really good friend of mine, so, you know. You should be.
I need an introduction then. Yep, definitely.
You should talk to him.
I think we have a lot in common.
Introduce you to him.
Oh, dear. Yeah, everything's really good here. What about you?
I'm doing great. I get to talk to you and learn a lot of history, so I love this episode.
No pressure. Here, in the introduction, reminded me about Mario Andretti. That was a fantastic evening. That was the chance to speak to Mario. So, and I suppose, as you've said, I've co-hosted before, so people should be prepared for the fact that at some point we'll probably forget which one of us is the presenter and which one of us is being interviewed. So it may be a work as we go along, just to see who's taking the upper hand in this conversation.
So, for the new listeners, if there's any new listeners, let us tell who is Colin Johnston and how did he, I'm talking about the Colin Johnston that we were talking about earlier. So how did his passion for motorsport history begin?
Well, there's definitely got to be new listeners because you're so proactive, Georgie, with the socials and the TikToks and all that. There's always got to be new listeners coming. So there's bound to be people who haven't seen me before. So yeah, I'm Colin. I'm from Northern Ireland. You can probably tell by the dodgy accent. And well, they call me a writer. They call me a historian. I'm a motorsport fan. I'm a motorsport fan who loves a great story and has loved chasing all these stories over decades now, as I've been following Formula One and rallying and all sorts of different motorsports. And a few stories have stuck in my head. I remember a few things. And as time passes, people like to hear stories. So I'm always happy to tell a tale about motorsport.
So, last year you attended a very special F1 race at a very special place. Mm-hmm. Which Grand Prix did you attend, and what was that experience like, from the fan vibe to seeing the cars up close?
I had a really good year last year, because I think you're referring to Monza, because I went to the Italian Grand Prix in September, but also earlier in the year I was at Monaco for the Monaco Historic for the racing there. So yeah, I'm, for want of a better phrase, I'm bucket listing. I'm ticking things off. So I sat in the sun in Monte Carlo and watched all the racing cars that I've read about over the decades. And then come September, I decided I wanted to go and see a contemporary Formula One race, which I haven't actually done before. Seen lots of historic racing, seen lots of Formula One cars running in different contexts, and done all sorts of different national motor racing events and all. But I've never actually been to a contemporary Formula One race, because probably something that a lot of your listeners and viewers can relate to. It's pretty blooming expensive. I probably should have done it 20 years ago, but here we are now. And being from Northern Ireland, it's not like I can just drive for a few hours to Silverstone to check out the British Grand Prix. It always gets a bit expensive getting off Ireland. So yeah, it's end of August, start of September last year, I went over to Italy, made a week of it, stayed at Lake Garda and toured about, did the Mille Miglia Museum, saw the sights, sat on the beach, and then spent 3 days at Monza, the Temple of Speed, for the Formula One Grand Prix. And what a race it was. It was fantastic with Charles Leclerc for Ferrari winning on home territory. It was magical. It was a great event.
I mean, Let's not talk about just you attending the F1 races. Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes involvement. You are involved with the Mercedes F1 team in some capacity when it comes to the creative side. Can you tell us a bit
Very small
more?
capacity.
Can you tell us a bit more about what that role entails?
It's a very small capacity. Very small
I
capacity.
mean, it's a big
Um,
deal because for Mercedes, it's a big deal to have you, in my opinion.
well, it's really nice of you. That's really nice of you to say so, Georgie. Mercedes are very proactive about their history. And Mercedes has, Daimler-Benz and the Mercedes brand have a fantastic history going back 130 odd years through all of motorsport and have so many brilliant stories to tell. And they have a fantastic archive and they have a fantastic museum in Stuttgart. But also the Formula One team based in Brackley in England are also really interested in their history as well, which is quite an unusual thing, I think, amongst Formula One teams and the Formula One organisation. So they've been really keen to tell some of their stories. And they very kindly asked me if I would help tell a few of the big stories and the big events from their history over the last decades. So over this last year, about this time last year, the first one was published, about the 1924 Targa Florio. I've been, as a freelance writer, writing some pieces for the Mercedes-Benz website. Probably also a good time to mention that I am a freelance writer, so I have no insights, I have no insider knowledge, and also fair to say, all the nonsense and all my bad takes belong entirely to me and do not reflect any organisation they might be associated with.
Have to be in the better safe side.
Yeah, I'm a freelance writer, but they're great people there who are really interested in their history, and it's super to be involved. And coming back to what you were saying about I attended Monza, and I attended Monza in my own right, and very kindly, the folks at Mercedes F1 invited me into the paddock for Sunday. So I got to spend Sunday, race day, with Mercedes-Benz hospitality, and got the pit tour, saw the cars, met the people, and fantastic. Great, wonderful to be in the paddock, especially my first visit to a contemporary Formula One race. I'm more used to historic paddocks and national paddocks and guys laying on tarpaulins, taking differentials out of Ford Escorts, rather than the Formula One world. So it was a delight, and it's also really, really interesting to see that side of the sport and get an insight into how small a world and how personable a world it is. Formula One probably quite rightly sells itself on a grand scale. Everything's super shiny, super expensive. Everything's chrome plated, and nowadays they all come in a Louis Vuitton box. But to actually see how small and family-like the paddock is, was a very pleasant revelation. And it was lovely to meet some people there as well who had encountered my writing. So it was quite a nice surprise. It's quite a nice surprise when somebody calls your name across the Formula One paddock.
So let's talk about your historian side of the career. Being a motorsport historian is such a unique career. How has this field evolved with the digital media, podcasts, and the modern fan engagement? Because one of the few reasons that I talk about this is the fact that we have new fans coming into the sport. And majority of these new fans have zero clue about what the sport is about, what the history is about, who the people are about, except for the media icons that we push on the screens, like Senna or Michael Schumacher, except for a couple of people, nobody knows who these legendary people are. Like, if we take Nigel Mansell, if you go and ask for a new person, they'll be like, who that? Right? And then, just like Mario was saying with you, the new people don't even know us anymore. Like, I mean, there's a valid point in there. And that is actually falls onto your side as a motorsport historian that can actually provide the insights and build an awareness regarding the people and the incidents that keeps on happening, because the past is keep on piling up since we are moving from the present to the future.
Past just keeps getting bigger. Um, yeah, that's a really good question. And it's really kind of you to say the nice things. I still have a problem with hearing myself described as a historian, because I'm not denying it in a way, but there's people who know so much more than me, and there's people who have done so much deeper research than me. I'll accept it. I'm happy to accept it, but it always sounds odd to me because I just love a great story. I just love a great story about motor racing, and digging deeper to find those stories. How's it changed? How's it changed, and how's it been a career for me? I've found my way into this thanks to digital media, because in a way, I know a little bit more, but I've been talking about this nonsense for 20 odd years. You know, well, I watched my first Grand Prix in the very early 1980s, and a couple of weeks later I was at the library taking out a library book. So I've been looking at this for years and years and years, but, you know, digital has increased the reach. We can get so many different voices and people from different places into our lives now. So I guess like a lot of industries, motorsport was centered in certain places, and you heard certain voices and certain people who it was convenient and accessible for them to get into that world. I've been very privileged, but I've been offset in Ireland and doing my own thing and having a life and building a career and whatnot. So with the advent of digital, it gives me a voice to chip in when important or better leveraged people speak up about motorsport and motorsport history. So in terms of a career, I cannot give anybody any advice in terms of getting into this. If you have a passion for this kind of thing, you will have found that passion anyway. Get stuck into it. If you have an opinion, say so. If you have half an opinion, say so, and say it's half an opinion and ask for somebody else to chip in and help you out. Get stuck in through all the connectivity we have nowadays. Get on the social media. Read me about what I've written. If you think there's something different, let's go. Let's find out and let's work together. So the digital media has really revolutionized things, because dozens of books behind me. I could never write a book, but I can write a website. You know, I can write 5,000 words on a topic and upload it, and when I get up in the morning and I meet my Rice Krispies, somebody on the other side of the world is talking about it, and we'll have a conversation about it. So we're very lucky. We're very lucky in that regard. Modern fan engagement, the fan base is changing and evolving year by year. I think I spoke to the guys in the podcast before I was presenting. I was a guest, whenever that was now, George, a year and a half or a couple of years ago. We spoke about that kind of thing. But even since then, it appears that the demographic has widened, and it's fantastic. It seems to continue to get younger and a larger female base to the fan base, who everybody brings their own thing to it. Everybody is passionate in their own way, and there's no identikit person who's interested in the history. No one type of fan is any more or less serious about the sport than any other type of fan. It's a great mix, and we're doing very well in that regard. Are they interested in history? I think they're interested in history if the history is made available to them. I don't mean sort of rammed down their throat or whatever. To come back to what we're doing with Mercedes, again, not to speak for them, but I'm providing copy for these articles. They're aware that there are people who want to learn more and are interested. And something I believe is that younger consumers are sometimes stereotyped as not having a very good attention span, very long attention span, and everything has to be catch your eye straight away or they're just going to flick on. I suspect young people, anybody nowadays using social media or whatever, or online portals to get news and information, everybody kind of flick. I don't think that's because of who people are or what generation they are. I believe that's because a lot of it's shite. Sorry, you might want to bleep that out. If if you're flicking and flicking and flicking, and everything is drivel, and everything is copy and paste, and everything is something they've nicked from somebody else's website, and the next thing is rumors, and it may be from a proper journalist working for it, but it's like that article's entirely rumor. If that's the depth of stuff, no wonder nobody wants to pause any more than 5 seconds before they flick on to the next thing. So I think there's room. I think there's room for more thoughtful, deeper, if that's not the wrong way to put it, work about the history of the sport and the people in the sport. And I think if that's put out there, not shoved under people's noses, but made available and popping up in the usual places that alerts and fast-moving news things appear, I think people will engage with it, and I think the people who want to find that will be captivated by it, and I think that can only be a good thing for the sport. But yeah, I think people are interested if it's put in front of them, and it's interesting to hear you talk about people who are very much people from the past. Goodness, the past. The 90s was last week to me, the past. But some people are very much in the forefront. And you give a great example there. You talk about a young person now might not know who Nigel Mansell is, but they really know who Ayrton Senna is. And those two are like that. You can't tell the story of one without the other. Do they know who Alain Prost really is, other than sort of maybe some cartoon villain character in the Senna story? So it's really interesting that some people's stories live on or are pushed. And of course, last year we had so much content around Ayrton Senna, justifiably so. The Senna Foundation and Bianca did such great work last year to keep her uncle's memory alive and to honour that. And goodness knows, I was at Monaco and I was at Goodwood, and it would have taken tears from a stone. It was amazing. But other stories get lost, and we don't have to put one down to raise the others, but we do need to raise the other stories, because they all interlink. They're all part of the sport we love, and they are great stories waiting to be told. And there's great characters out there from the past that people have yet to discover, it appears.
But there's a difference when it comes to digital versus analog. With AI, simulators, and data-heavy strategies dominating motorsports today, do you think we are losing some of the romance of old-school racing?
In terms of the sport,
yeah.
In terms of people going motor racing. Again, I might have given a slightly different answer maybe a year ago. I think obviously teams have access to enormous amounts of data that flows in both directions, and huge computational strength. And now with so-called AI, whatever they're using, they've always been crunching numbers with computers. It's just a different buzzword, I guess. And I still think I did a thing a few years ago where I thought about what changes I would make to the sport, and there's still part of me that thinks that come race day, I wouldn't like so much information being transmitted. I would like to explore something where from the cars going to Parc Fermé or something like that, there will be no more data transfer between the home base and the track. The track can sit and crunch your own numbers. But I think, and maybe it's part of the cost cap and the new regime, I think everybody's roughly on the same kind of level. It's never going to be a level playing field. You wouldn't want it to be a level playing field. But I think everybody has, within the limits of their resources, access to the same kind of things. So it's access to information that makes a car. No. It's access to information that doesn't make the car go faster. The car will go as fast as it is capable of going. What they're trying to do is unlock that capability. Okay? So the car will do the speed that the car is capable of. You cannot change that. That's physics. It's cracking the code as to how you set it up and how the guy's going to drive it and how he's going to manage tires. And I think given that everybody is roughly on the same page, I think it still comes down to racing drivers. And with super examples of that at the weekend as well, just the randomness, if there is anything random. Kimi Antonelli coming into the pits and Max Verstappen nearly hitting him. And great save by Kimi that he didn't take out his pit crew. But, AI didn't see that coming. So there's always going to be that. And men are always going to make the difference to the machine, how it's run and how it's driven. You can't make the car go any faster than it's capable of, but it's all about unlocking the potential. And I think the tools have changed, but I think essentially it's the same story as it ever was. Just we can unlock more of the potential now. And I guess that's probably partially what we see in historic racing as well, where there's some talk about how older cars maybe now have more performance than they had back in the day. Now there's maybe some dark arts there, or maybe some secrets there, but also you can't unlearn things. And I think just as time moves on, the great engineers and the great drivers learn and develop and learn generation on generation as to how to unlock potential in racing cars. But it's interesting. It's hard to see how much further it can go. But as I say, I wouldn't mind maybe some sort of a cap on how home base can interact with the racetrack come race day, just to maybe add a wee bit of extra excitement to it.
I mean, when it comes to these whole debate of, oh, you know what, those days, those were the cars, these days, these drivers are not like those drivers and all that. I agree, but at the same time, I disagree, because I agree, yes.
Great.
Those
I love it.
drivers,
Tell me where I'm wrong.
no,
Come on, let's go.
those drivers were different. These drivers are different. So I agree on that part. But at the same time, that was a different era, and this is a different era. Those days, those golden years, it was more mechanically focused. But these years, it's more technologically focused. So if we took Lewis Hamilton and put him into an 80s, 60s car, he might utterly fail. But at the same time, we can't say we can take one of those drivers from that era and put them into a new techie car like this. They might fail at the same time as well. We never know, because nowadays the drivers, they have a lot of things going around while driving, with all these buttons and these cones and everything. But those days, for the drivers, they were all depending on the driver's skills, and it was so mechanically focused, so they only had to drive and manage everything in a very manual way, where you drive a car on the road at the same way and you just race with it. But now there's so many things going on. Even for a driver, you can't just be a driver, you have to be very tech savvy, drive the whole thing. So so I totally agree.
Well, it definitely is different skill sets nowadays. But the difference is the drivers nowadays are brought up with that. And you even think about the cars we drive. We jump into a car. We jump into a car now with its keyless go. We put our foot in the brake and press the start button. We adjust the electric seat and put the heated seat on. The touchscreen comes up and we flick it across to turn off our lane assist and blah blah blah, and we turn a dial to go. Your granddad wouldn't know where to start with that, and that's just to drive to the shops. So it's a different generation, and the drivers today are brought up from the moment they leave karts. Basically, they're dealing with the technology, and they deal with technology in their lives anyway. So yes, you're right. There's a lot to deal with. So Fangio put in a time machine and brought to today would probably struggle. A kid born in Argentina 20 years ago who has come up through it today, Franco Colapinto, he will be able to do it very well because it's what he's brought up with. But the drivers today do have that same innate sense and that sort of that feel and that touch, and you can see it in historic racing. When some of the drivers jump into old cars and love it, and guys that you think just have a reputation as being modern racers, huge grip, aero cars, blah blah blah. You put them in an old Ferrari, you You put them in an old Ford GT40 and send them around Goodwood, and in 10 minutes they're sideways everywhere and they're bloody quick because the core talent is the same. The core skill is the same. And well, it no doubt takes a while to get your eye in. These guys are the masters, no doubt about it.
Couldn't agree more. So, since we were talking about Goodwood, which, oh my god, I love that festival, first of all.
I want to go to the festival this year. I was over at the circuit for the members meeting, and I want to go to Festival of Speed, and I think all the tickets have gone. I've never been to Festival of Speed. I've wanted to go since it started 30 years ago, and I've never got across to it. I've been to the circuit a few times. Well, I've taken a notion now that I really want to go because they're doing a lot of Formula One stuff for the so-called 75th anniversary. But I think I've maybe left it too late. I think the tickets are all gone, but I must take a look at it. But sorry, I interrupted you. We're talking about Goodwood.
I think to secure a Goodwood ticket is way harder than getting an F1 ticket.
F1 tickets were easy. Now, the paddock was, I'm hugely grateful to Mercedes, but here Monza is very doable and Monaco is very doable for any fans who can get to Europe or move about Europe. Monza was a delight to do, actually, and the fans were amazing. I had a general admission ticket, and out it was 35 degrees heat, and the park was just dust, and the Tifosi were magnificent. It was an absolute joy. It was a joy. Now, come Sunday, because I'm an old bloke, I was really glad to get the hospitality from Mercedes-Benz with air conditioning and not to be slumming. 3 days in a row might have killed me. But being out in the Royal Park amongst the fans was incredible. Incredible. Even if you see very little, just to be amongst them and to be amongst them. I was telling somebody the other day to be there when Kimi Antonelli made his debut on Friday and went faster and faster, all the purple sectors, and then crashed it. To be in amongst the Italian fans when it was magical. Monza is magic. You should go. Everyone should go to Monza and Monaco.
So, in your historian work, you've probably come across amazing untold stories. What are 3 moments from motorsport history you think more fans should know about?
Should know. Probably should, and I could be quite lazy about it. I should probably point you towards some of the Mercedes stories we've told over this last year. Obvious bias on my part, but there are some cracking stories there. I'm at a disadvantage as well because I don't know what young people today don't know, so I don't know where anybody's starting from. But if you watch Formula One today and you're a Drive to Survive person and you're loving it and to you the past is 3 years ago, jump on the Mercedes F1 website and check out a couple of things we've done very recently to get a taster of this kind of thing. We've just done a piece for the 70th anniversary of Stirling Moss winning the Mille Miglia sports car race in Italy, the 1,000-mile race around Italy. Again, younger fans might know it because it was featured as part of the Ferrari movie a year or two ago. And Stirling won it on the Mercedes-Benz in record time. It was the most amazing drive and the most amazing race. And he took along with him the great journalist Dennis Jenkinson as a navigator, and together they worked together with this most amazing Mercedes car, which is on my wall in several places that you can't see with a camera. And an amazing race, an outstanding race, and one of the most important races in Mercedes history, and real foundation myth for the modern Mercedes company and for Stirling Moss. So there's stories like that. One we told a year ago for something really different was the 1924 Targa Florio. Again, a race in Italy, in Sicily in this case. But the 1920s, and it's dust and basic cars and flat out speeds, and it's magical. But I would probably, if somebody was young and somebody said, I want to know more about the history, I'd probably encourage them to find it for themselves. And we've all these digital resources. We have Wikipedia and Google Images and Google Search and whatnot. And the responses you get and the results you get cannot always be taken as the gospel truth, and range from excellent to dubious to lies. But it's a great place to jump in. So if a fan said to me, I want to know more about, I'm a Ferrari fan, I like Charles Leclerc. I would say to them, why not Google Ferrari 1954? Why not go to Google Images and Google Ferrari F1 1950s and search for it and see what catches your eye, and open 24 tabs and look at things and see what really captures your heart, and do that classic internet thing, just go down a wormhole, just follow it where it takes you. Go across YouTube, go across images, go across Wikipedia, and just find what captures your heart and take it from there. And then once you know the kind of thing that you like, it's like anything. It's like how I got started. I didn't sit down to learn 1001 facts about motor racing. It was a very pleasant diversion from real life, and good times had learning about all these stories, because they really appealed to me, and I really got to like the people and the places that they involve. So yeah, by all means, jump on the Mercedes F1 website and check out some of those stories as a quick jump in. But yeah, find your own path. Google is your friend. Just don't bet the house on the accuracy of the results.
Just to mention, we are not paid by Google, but
all our search engines are available. They may not be as good, but they are available.
And so Sterling Moss is actually one of my favorite drivers. I adore the person. I love his the funny common sense, the sarcasm, and also the talent that he had.
There he is, right behind me.
I should visit your house.
There he is. There he is. That's him after winning the 1955 Mille Miglia. That's him, and that's Dennis Jenkinson, the great journalist who wrote for Motorsport magazine a report of the race. As soon as he had finished winning the race, he sat down and hand wrote a race report, because he was a continental correspondent for Motorsport. And he put that in the Italian Post, and sent it to London, where it was printed. And this report is I'm not even going to say it probably. This report is the finest piece of motorsport journalism ever written. And again, the Motorsport magazine website will surely point you towards it. So another great thing for fans. Magazines that have archive issues on their websites, jump right in. Enjoy.
I was telling Andrew when he came over to one of the podcasts also, because I was asking him to name a couple of races that he would like to have a chance to talk with, dead or alive. And then when he picked a person, I said, if it's up to me, I would choose Sterling Moss. And then he said, you know what, Georgie, I actually had an opportunity to talk with Sir Sterling Moss. And I was like, that's all. I only had
Oh dear. Yeah. I never met the man, but I would have loved to. And yeah, he was an enormous character, and I think for a lot of people, younger generations who maybe only know him as an old man, he was brilliant. In his 20s and 30s, he was a fantastic racing driver, and hugely charismatic and organised and meticulous and bloody fast. He was a great man and a great racing driver.
So back again to historical accuracy and F1 media. From Netflix documentaries to social media hype, do you think modern F1 storytelling does justice to the sport's history?
Accuracy, and does the storytelling do justice? I don't think there's enough storytelling about the history of the sport. And again, not to be like a crack record, but that's why I'm so grateful to Mercedes for going forward with this project, taking the like of things that I was doing on my own website and actually going, we want to own our part of this history. Let's put it out there, because it's something everybody should be doing. Um, we aren't. It's come back to the thing. It's everything's so simple now. We're not asking them to do a print run of books. It's it's data. It's data on a website, and it's getting somebody like me to put it together for them. So why isn't Formula One as an organisation doing it better? Why isn't Ferrari doing it better? Why isn't McLaren doing it better? They mustn't have an interest, or they must feel that there isn't enough of an interest there. Which, okay, it's fair enough. They're all very, very busy. They're incredibly busy racing teams now, with comms departments and digital departments that are flat out now with the schedule that they've got. So I think there should and could be much more storytelling around motorsport in general, because I think it's an easy way to add value. Thinking in terms of these big brands and the race series themselves, the history's just sitting there. And when you think how much effort is put into pushing for something new, this relentless push to new livery, new idea, new flashbang, new template for the socials. If you've got 25, 45, 95 years of history behind you, it's just sitting there. That's stories and images and ideas and inspirations that are for free. You just need to unlock them and present them. So I think there's value in that. And I think engaging with history and presenting history is a subtle or not so subtle way of giving your brand gravitas. Showing, and the big brands, and I'm not ragging on anybody, but Ferrari does keep coming to mind, where there's sort of always a push for the shiny new, where actually they have more heft and have more dignity than that, and have this huge weight of history. They have a huge weight of history. They also have a huge weight of history on them, but they have this huge history. So yeah, I think everybody could do more of that. And coming back to what you were saying as well about how some faces from the past, for want of a better phrase, are so familiar to younger fans, most likely because through F1 themselves, their stories have been presented, or in cooperation with F1 themselves, and how young fans would know Senna. Young fans would probably know Nicky Lauda if they've been around for a few years, and they may know James Hunt, perhaps, because presented maybe, should I say, presented in a slightly cartoon-like way, which that story was deeper and more lovely than it's often presented. That 1976 story. So where are the other people? Where are the other great names? This year, 1965 was Jim Clark's second World Championship. He won his second World Championship, said he, questioned himself. I think that's right. It was the second World Championship, and it was the year he won the Indy 500 as well. That was enormous. Jimmy Clark may have been the greatest driver ever in Formula One. He may have been the quickest man just to jump in any car ever. Where is he? Maybe I've missed it. Maybe there's a section on F1.com, about him, but I don't think so. So yeah, there's so many stories left untold, and they aren't deep, and they don't need months of research and dive into archives. They just need to be told, and it's part of the rich history of the sport, and you can add that richness for virtually nothing, and add value and add dignity. In motorsport, that sometimes feels like it's all the time to search for the new thing, the new shiny thing. We're going to rebrand, we're going to push, we're going to redesign this, that, or the other. I think Formula One needs to just stand up and say, we're 120 years of Grand Prix motor racing. That's who we are, and we don't have to chase the new shiny spangly thing because we're the boys. We've been here forever.
Absolutely. They don't need any other red carpet or shiny blings to say, or
Now, I must say, I do like the Louis Vuitton boxes for the trophies. Now, I do like a bit of bling myself, so I'm not throwing it all out, but you know what I'm getting
at. Yeah, because that prestige, that history, that literally, it's the name. It's them.
Yep.
They don't need it.
And then what sort of history they do try to grab, F1 75. We've had F1 70 before. We've had the 1000th race before, and I'm not the only boring old fool online who's going, that doesn't make sense. Does not up. For people who don't know, Formula One as a formula was dreamt up in 1946, set down in 1947. From 1947, they were racing to the brand new international racing formula, which was Formula One. So Formula One started then. What did start in 1950 was the World Drivers' Championship, which was a series of the great Formula One Grand Prix, the Grand Prix which were run to Formula One, and the Indy 500 to make a world championship to find a world champion driver. Now, for 2 years of this World Drivers' Championship, none of the races were for Formula One. In 1952 and 53, Formula One collapsed as a series, as a formula for racing. Teams weren't interested in it, and they were run for Formula 2 cars. So history's messy, and that's why we love it.
Yeah.
So this year is 75 years since the first World Drivers' Championship. It's not 75 years of Formula One. It's not 75 years of the Formula One World Championship. So
it's 75 years.
It's
Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, so it's boring, right? People are going, get a life. Just for God's sake, like, so tedious. But this is, that's what editors and proofreaders and people, we can still tell the stories and have a wonderful time and be so excited about so many things and get the facts right as well.
I mean, if you want to build a future, you need to know your past. So history, you need to know the history of something if you want to build something going forward, a bigger, a stronger foundation for the sport, for life, everything. So history plays a major role in it. And if we start talking about a sport itself, for me, I started writing about stuff that I'm getting curious about on LinkedIn. And
I have seen that. I will jump in to interrupt you for 1 wee minute because this is super and people should know this, because Georgie is now presenting the podcast and she didn't always, and now she's on LinkedIn and different places writing really, really well, really interesting stuff, and it's super because people may or may not know that for years Georgie has been a fantastic cheerleader for so many other people and has worked so hard behind the scenes and helped so many people get a start. So apologies for interrupting, but it is fantastic to see Georgie putting her own face forward because she's got the personality, she's got the knowledge, and it's fantastic. Georgie needs to start cheering for Georgie from now on.
For the first time in my history, I'm sure.
For the first time. Go, Georgie.
So when I started writing about these, I do my research, I learn something new, and then, what I realized was, if I'm going to talk about these things, I need to learn the history. And if somebody's coming up with a point to say whether the person is wrong or right, I need to know what the hell happened that day. So without a history.
Well, that's it. And it's like, it's the opposite of arrogance, because you come up with a point, you think, oh, there's that thing. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to write about that. Oh, but hang on. Maybe I'm wrong. It wouldn't be terrible if I'm wrong. So I better check. And I'll check this and this and this and this. So yeah, it's an appropriate amount of caution, and I'm here for it. I hear you, Georgie. You don't want to go off on the wrong tangent.
Yeah, because history is very interesting for me because that gives you a different perspective. I mean, let's keep the sport history aside. We talk about the country's histories. people's histories. We keep on referring to the historical things to make sense in what is happening with us, our bodies, the countries, or the weather, or anything. So if you're talking about that, we need to refer to the sport history as well. So that is really important. And the more you know about the history, the more you're going to be very interested in the sport, because that is a marvel wonder for me. Every single day when I read something about it, when I get to know about something, it makes me go wordless. Like I can't even find words. Like about the way Nigel Mansell handled his cars when he was having issues driving the car, but still he drove the car with just, all the stuff. And then how Sterling Moss was referred, even those coppers those days, if a person is, speeding, they'll be like, oh, who do you think you are, Moss? Like those things. You need to know the backstories of those things to make it interesting, and to have an understanding about it. So those are like really wonderful pieces that you need to know. So yeah. So heading back to
The other thing as well about history is the history is what gives Formula One its value, because history is the difference between a new formula starting tomorrow. If I started Formula big fat cars, well, with big engines and big wheels on them, I have no history, I have no heritage, I have no story to tell. So when Formula One doesn't engage with 120 years of Grand Prix history and own it and proudly say this is us, they're no different from a startup. They're no different from Formula E, which I love, which has 10 plus years of history. So history gives you that weight and gives you that gravitas. And it gives you something to look to for ideas for the future and all the good things. I could go on for hours. I do sometimes.
I mean, you answered the rest of the questions that I had for you, like the impact, where they should be finding, like about the Google that we talk about, and the impact about knowing the history and all that. So for me, the history is a lot of things that you can actually learn. And this is me giving a huge shout out to Colin for his upcoming content on his TikTok channels and Instagram and everywhere that you might able to see soon on a to-do list where
Dear
he's
listeners,
teaching you.
Apparently I'm coming to a TikTok near you soon. There you go.
So if you head over to his channel, you'll be able to learn a lot more about motorsport history. This fellow, I'm telling you, the way he talks about it, he's a really good storyteller, and you will love his content. So, this is me for.
There will be TikToks that last 2 hours long. There'll be 2 hour long TikToks. So there will, so it may lose the impact of the format.
This is me actually basically forcing him to do all this content out.
She mentioned this before, and I was skeptical, but now it's in the public sphere, so here we are.
So let's go for some fun questions for you. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, since Blag is not here, I'm straight away going to ask you whether you like pineapple on pizza.
Yes. I saw that one coming. So yeah, pineapple on pizza. Oh, pizza is always a good idea. Having said that, when I was in Italy, I didn't dare ask for pineapple on my pizza because I didn't want to get thrown out of the country before the Grand Prix happened. So, but normally, yes, pineapple on pizza, yes,
CJ,
please.
if you would have asked for pineapple on pizza in Italy, you would have grinded. You would have been.
I would still be in jail in Italy. I would still be in jail. Yep.
Okay, so the second question for you. If you were a sandwich, what would be in it and what would it be called?
Oh, now I like a sandwich. Who doesn't like a sandwich? But I'm quite traditional. Now, great sandwiches. Like all good food, it's where you have it. It's the location that makes it. So, I'm thinking of one sandwich. I had a sandwich in Monaco last May, at the Historic, And it was a traditional jambon beurre. It was half baguette with lashings of butter and ham in it. Nothing terribly spectacular. But I had this sandwich in a grandstand underneath a tree in the sunshine on the outside of Anthony Nogue's corner on the Monaco circuit while the late 1950s Formula One cars were practicing.
That's a picnic. You've gone for a picnic.
And it was heaven. So my sandwich would be a jambon beurre, and even if I was eating it in my car in Belfast tomorrow, I'd be able to close my eyes and imagine I was back in Monte Carlo and I could hear them 250F Maseratis coming round the swimming pool.
I stand my ground. He's a good storyteller. What did I tell you guys?
Oh dear. Is that an okay answer? Does that fit the bill?
So
she's gone.
I lost the connection. Okay, so the third question for you, Sam. Would you rather debate Toto Wolff on race strategy or argue with Max Verstappen about track limits?
That's an easy one. That is an easy. I would rather talk to Toto Wolff about race strategy, because nobody wants to talk about track limits.
Especially with
track limits. Well, especially with Max Verstappen. To be fair, he might have some interesting thoughts on it, which, if nothing else, would be entertaining and enlightening. But my goodness, the track limits is so tedious, and commentators, literal race commentators, and people commentating on the racing are so into it. Like turn 1 and turn 2 on the first lap at the weekend. Oh, has Norris been pushed off? Is he going to get a penalty? Jesus wept. It is so tedious. We just need to get over it already. So track limits are just, put enough gravel and crap out there that if anybody goes out there, it'll be a natural penalty because they'll have to clean up their tires and get back on the track, and then just let them race. So yeah, track limits are so tedious. Just build a wall around it. Just build a wall.
I mean, they go.
So Toto all the way. Toto, if you're listening, Toto, let's have that call. We'll talk about race strategy. You'll never win a race again if you take my advice.
Listen, I think you only talk about race strategies with Ferrari.
Now, Ferrari, I could help.
Please, Ferrari, if you're listening, from...
We go for option H. Option H, Lewis.
No, I'm
Confirm.
going to go for option Z.
Do you want me to let him pass too?
Have some tea while you are at it.
Yeah, yes. Fair play to Lewis. Yeah, great line in sarcasm, because it's like, what can you do but laugh? So yeah, a very British response, I think, to very, very Italian team. Murray Walker used to always say that back in the 80s that the Ferrari pit stops used to resemble an Italian bus stop, where just like the car arrived and everybody was just like, ah. So Ferrari, have that reputation for being,
I don't know how
cliched Italian sometimes. Yeah, but excellent responses from Lewis. Yes, I approve.
Okay, what's the weirdest or most unexpected motorsport fact you've ever uncovered?
Ooh, weird one. Weird one. There's lots. I love wee details, so there's lots of stuff that I find weird that people just think I'm weird for liking it. Here's a good one. I was in the FIA archives a few weeks back, and I was looking through minutes of a meeting from 1946. It comes back to the start of Formula One thing. I was looking for minutes of the meeting where they're discussing setting up the new international formula. Now, British racing cars traditionally were British racing green. That was the national colour of Britain. France was blue. Italy was red, Britain was green. British racing green since 1903. Except for 1 year. In the minutes, the representative from Great Britain asked for permission for British racing cars not to be painted green, but to be painted blue with the Union Jack on the side. And they were going to trial it for 2 years, but after less than a year, they came back and switched it back to green. So, strictly speaking, in 1946 and into 1947...
You guys meant France.
The racing colours of Britain were dark blue with a Union Jack on the side of the car and not British racing green.
Basically, you guys went onto the France side.
I'm in Northern Ireland. We probably just stayed green. We probably just did. I wonder actually how many people even knew about it or cared about it or even just went with it. You know, I forget who the British representative was in the meeting, but you know, maybe he was just freestyling.
Okay. Sorry. You can bring back one retired F1 team and give them a top tier car. Who are you reviving?
Oh, right. Okay, bringing somebody back and give them bring them back today and give them a modern car today. Bring them back racing today. Tell you what I miss about Formula One, and I think a lot of people do as well, is privateer entries. People who had one car bought a second-hand car and did great things, did terrible things, did things that nobody noticed, but there was a history of different entrants. And I am thinking of Rob Walker, Rob Walker's team. Rob Walker ran Stirling Moss, and he ran Ennis Ireland, and he ran Joch and Rindt through the late 1950s to the late 1960s. Again, a blue car with a white noseband, and he ran various Lotuses and Coopers and whatnot with great success. Well, fairly good success given the size of the operation. So let's teleport back the Rob Walker team as a privateer in the 2025 F1 paddock with one car, and in the grand tradition of Rob Walker, he will have bought a McLaren. He will have bought last year's McLaren off McLaren because there's nothing as cheap as last year's racing car. So he will have given a few shekels to McLaren, bought last year's racing car, painted it blue with a white noseband, and he'd have. So who would he have? Who would he have as his driver? He'd maybe have like Fernando Alonso. So Fernando Alonso in the Rob Walker McLaren, lining up for the Grand Prix. Get him in time for Imola. Make it happen.
Okay, so this is going to be the last question for you for today.
All right, okay.
What's your motorsport guilty pleasure? A race, a driver, or even a track you love but others don't? What's your guilty pleasure?
Oh. Now, I'm going to question the premise of this question because there are no guilty pleasures. I'm here to tell you that now. Enjoy what you like. like the things you like, and if anybody tells you, nah, tell them to sling their hook. Like the things you like, be passionate about them, get stuck in, have fun, life's too short.
Amen.
But something, yeah. But let me see, something, well, I'm sort of history guy and pedantic about things and about racing or whatnot, so maybe it's slightly out of character. I like a race that's for really big money. I love a race with a big prize pot, a big old-fashioned win this race and you're going to get a giant check for £10 million. So thinking of things, some of the American racing, but thing that comes to mind for me is the old Tripoli Grand Prix in Libya in North Africa in the 1920s and the 1930s, which had a big prize pot and had a lottery attached to it as well, where people all over Italy would buy lottery tickets for a chance to win money. To the extent that there was a story, not a truthful story, but there was a story around that race about how the drivers had supposedly fixed one of those races along with somebody who held a certain lottery ticket. It's not quite true, but it's a great story. But yeah, Mike, if there's a guilty pleasure, it might be that I would just like a big, gaudy motor race for a huge, big sack of cash. We should make it happen. We should bring it back. Like the old Monza Grand Prix, not the Italian Grand Prix, but there used to be an early season Monza Grand Prix for Formula One cars, two heats and a final. Let's bring something like that back. Formula Libre, racing cars have to be over 3 years old. Bring what you want, an Indy car, Formula One car, whatever, and we'll have 2 heats and a final, and the winner gets €5 million.
That's amazing, though. Okay.
But it'd be good fun.
Thank you so much. But as always, it's been an absolute blast. But first of all,
that's been good.
Tell us where we can find you, so all these people who are listening can follow you up.
Well, you'll find me on various socials, normally under @CJ Grand Prix. I'm at Twitter, although it's a shell of its former self, and that makes me really quite sad. But you'll find me on Instagram as well, and Threads and Blue Sky. You'll find me on LinkedIn, which I'm there trolling all the business types by writing about motor racing, but it seems to go down well. And where else? Is there any?
TikTok. You have a TikTok page.
Ticky. There's somewhere else. There's somewhere else that Georgie wants me to be. Yeah, so I'll be there as well. Eventually. Probably.
Follow his account on TikTok. Colin, as always, it's been an absolute blast. From the paddock to the archives, your knowledge and passion for motorsport never fail to inspire and educate.
Too kind.
We're lucky to have
She's off
voice
again.
in the sport, both literally and historically, sir.
It's been a blast. Thanks, Georgie.
To all our listeners, make sure to follow Colin's work for more deep dives and Google everything possible to learn a lot and golden nuggets from
just don't believe it.
Past. And don't forget to subscribe for more episodes packed with engines, insights, and everything in between. Until next time, keep up the good work.